holding us and loving us and shoring us up and helping us to be strong. Some days when we think we just can't make it, you're there. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Good afternoon. It's kind of hard to follow that. So, the song's pretty emotional. So I, like I said earlier, I want to welcome each and every single one of you guys here, the Blue Mountain Ministries. This is us. This is what we do. We come here every week as believers to be together. God bless you, and to learn and to get better, to grow closer, to know who it is we are that He said. I don't know about you guys, but the last couple of weeks for us have been a little challenging, maybe chaotic in our household. Between work schedules, planning, kids, ministry obligations, getting ready to launch a tribe, and just, well, quite frankly, life, it's been a bit chaotic. It's actually, I've taken the last couple of weeks to really reflect over the course of my life, and actually all the times that there have been seasons of confusion and chaos that have run throughout the ups and downs of my life. And it's pretty disturbing to see some of the highs and some of the lows that I've experienced, and it's tough to think about and to see how poorly I managed through some of those things. Really poorly. I don't know if anybody here has ever experienced this, but probably not, because I'm sure all of you have it all together all the time. I mean, from the loss of loved ones, job instability, kids issues, the list could go on and on and on, couldn't it? It seems just when everything is going, smooth sailing, we're in a good place. Life is treating us good. The kids are behaving, right? Job's going okay. And something happens to completely send everything into pandemonium. It's like just nuclear bomb in your life, right? Everything is just out of control. Again, nobody else feels this. So as you guys can see up there, we're starting this week a series entitled Discipline. And Lola, I love what you put underneath. If you can't see it, it says, I know it's in there somewhere. That was perfect. I know it may seem rather mundane and boring. Yeah. Discipline is boring. If you're a kid, discipline is terrifying. If you're an adult, discipline is terrifying, right? Nobody wants to be told, you're doing that wrong, or no, I didn't. 48 years old. Don't talk to me like that, right? But honestly, in order to reach our potential this year of passionately pursuing our purpose, we have to have discipline. That's what we've got to have. We have to have discipline. I fully believe that this topic is one that we could all use a little more understanding of, but first and foremost, myself. Again, every time I get up here, I'm telling you guys I'm preaching at myself. I might as well be preaching in a mirror every single week. Now, what do you think about when you hear the word discipline? Shout out some things. What do you think? Spankings. Yes. What's that? Grounded. Rules. Absolutely. Anything from Peanut Gallery? Y'all have the Peanut Gallery today, so I just said anything from the Peanut Gallery. So some of honestly, that's where my mind goes when I think of discipline, right? Or I think of, at work, being a supervisor, I think of disciplinary action, right? Taking people to HR, which I hate doing. I love our HR people, but hate going to HR. It's the bane of my existence. But, you might think of the military, right? Discipline. They're pretty disciplined, regimented. Punishment, we went through that. I think we've covered that one. Maybe order, not chaos. Well, I looked it up as usual because, I'm a dork. And these are the definitions that Merriam-Webster gave us, and I love these. It's control gained by enforcing obedience or order. That's for parents, okay? An orderly or prescribed conduct or pattern of behavior. A field of study. Right? These are the ones that I really liked. Training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. or quite simply, self-control. I really like those. I really like those last two, self-control and training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental fact. I need that. I need that in my life. I really do. It's interesting that discipline has all of these meanings, but those last two are so important for our walk with Christ. I'm not going to lie to you. It's tough. Absolutely tough to be disciplined. Not going to lie. Is discipline to sit down and study every week? It's difficult some days just to put one foot in front of the other. But we have to get up, we have to keep going, we have to keep moving, we have to keep striving for better. Discipline is giving ourselves rules, giving ourselves, not each other, right? Giving ourselves rules and goals to shoot for. I know we all strive for self-control in our lives. We do. Our homes, that's difficult. And even at our workplaces. And Lord knows that's difficult in itself, right? But you see, the enemy doesn't want us to have discipline or self-control at all. At all. It's so much easier to manipulate us and coax us into falling out of character if we don't have control of our faculties, isn't it? If you have taken one half step off of alignment with Christ, it is so easy for the enemy to come in and attack and just knock you completely off the rails. And then what happens? Pandemonium and bedlam. What we should all understand is that God is not one to create chaos or confusion in his children's lives, much like that of an actual physical parent here on this planet. My job is not to create chaos in children's lives. I want them to have order and stability and chaos, and not chaos, and understanding. Freudian slip. If you ever visited the Riggs household, you'll know it's complete chaos every given day. Sorry. Wow, that was a good one. But just like any parent, we wouldn't do that to our kids because we actually love them and care about them. And any good parent that does is going to do the same thing. You know, 1 Corinthians 14:33 tells us, "For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints." Confusion happens, honestly, to everyone. It does. It happens whether we want it to or not. It's not something that we want to have it. We don't seek it. I hope you don't anyway. I hope you're not looking for confusion because that's the last thing that I need. You see, when we don't understand things in our life, we fear, we worry, we stress because we don't have the truth in us. And what's the truth? I'm glad you asked. God is the truth. End of story. God is truth. His word is truth. His actions are truth. His promises are truth. The Bible, that's all the truth you need right there in your hands. You see, confusion only comes when we don't have the peace of God living within us. Now understand that the enemy will always try to come with confusion into your lives. 1 Peter 5:7 tells us this. How do we get around that? We should cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. God cares. Just when you think you're in the lowest of the lows or the highest of the highs, he's still right there with you. He's still caring for you. He still wants to hear from you. It is like a song to his voice. To his ears when you're on your knees and the only thing that comes out is a tear. He knows what that means. He feels what you feel. Cast it on him because he's the one who needs to hear that. He's the only one that can do anything about it. I can listen. I will pray with you. I will anoint you. I will do everything in my power. I don't have his power. He is the all-powerful, amazing Father of God. That's what he is. He's there for us. And by casting our anxieties on him, that confusion that seeks to take us out will be less effective because we'll be rooted in God. Case in point is that God knows every detail. Like I said, he knows how many hairs you have on your head. He knew you in the womb as he was knitting you together. What a beautiful thought. Somebody actually knows you that intimately and that deeply and that passionately. He knows what steps we'll take in our lives or what he'd like to see us do in our lives. He will never lead you astray, but he will lead you into all truth. That's in John 16:13. So what does Paul mean when he says God is not the author of confusion? You see, he's writing to the church in Corinth at this time, and he's addressing that because they were struggling to understand the gifts of the Spirit. Gifts of the Spirit, New Testament, they're still alive and breathing. They're still there, okay? This church was off the chain. They were new believers, and they were like lock, stock, and barrel all over their spiritual gifts, and they were like in it to win it, all right? I mean, they were comparing gifts among each other. They were utilizing their gifts, such as speaking in tongues during worship. The church was dealing with confusion. It was just, quite honestly, unorganized. Anybody ever been there? I swear it's half the time I get home from work, it's just like chickens running around literal chickens running around the front yard. It's chaos. I wish I was making that up. It's chaos, right? But we've all come across like confused singing. We should be praising. We should be worshiping. We should be prophesying over one another. And we should be giving our testimonies, because how do you relate to other people? With your testimony, right? But Paul is teaching them that God would not want them to use the gifts during church to be confusing and hinder true worship. That's what he's saying in this. I know it sounds kind of weird because, anybody ever been to a Pentecostal church? It's crazy. I mean, those people get crazy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's fun. It's a lot of fun at a Pentecostal church. I mean, I've seen people doing laps, and I mean, it's but you feel the Spirit moving. But there are times where it gets a little too out of hand, and it's just so much going on that it takes away from the move of God in the room, right? In the Bible, it's mentioned that God will confuse your enemies, Joshua 10, right? Why is that? Maybe it's to keep God's people safe. You ever think about that? Yeah, right? I mean, doesn't God want to keep you safe? I mean, I think he tells you throughout the Bible that that's his ultimate goal. He wants to keep us safe. He wants to love us. He wants us to follow the path, right? This doesn't mean that the negatives in your life won't happen. Why is that? Because we make stupid choices, because we're human and our brains are this big. I mean, reality, that's what it's all about. But we also have to recognize that God is in control and he is sovereign. That's in Psalm 135:6, if you're interested. I want to ask you a question today. Are you willing to let God be in control? Don't answer. Pray over it. The answer should be yes. Cliff's Note version there. You see, in all of life's situations, we will have hardships. We can't get away from it. We cannot escape them. It's impossible. We will have moments of pure joy. But what's unfortunate is that the gospel that we believe, the gospel that we speak, is not accepted everywhere, especially where there's no peace. We can be afflicted, wounded, even beaten for our beliefs. But we are alive in Jesus Christ because he already paid the price of death that was hung on our shoulders. He took it all for us. You see, God's word is so important that it is crucial to have it on our minds constantly. I mean, constantly. Peace is what Jesus gave us. He told us in John 14:27. Not as the world can give us, because the world can give us peace, but it's temporary, it's fleeting, it's just like right? That's it, that's all it is. When you have the peace of God, you have the peace of God. It's just like, okay, right? If there's no peace in situations in your life, it's not from God. Straight up. God is a God of order. 1 Corinthians 14 tells us all about that. You see, the enemy creates confusion to distort the truth from coming forth into your mind. He's going to throw things, he's going to bring up things from 30 years ago that you did and said, and you were a fool. He did that to me not too long ago. There was a guy, and I didn't even have this. I was horrible. I was a mean individual. I was a paramedic working on the streets of Petersburg, and there's this guy who we worked with all the time. His name was Sean. Not you, Sean. Just happened to be his name was Sean. So Sean he wanted to be a paramedic, and he wanted to be good at what he did. And he came up to me when he got his paramedic, and he was being goofy. He knelt down. He knelt down and he said, "I got my paramedic. I just want to be as good as you." And I looked at him, deadpan, and said, "You will never be as good as me." I turned around and walked away. God's honest truth. I called him about 25 years after the fact, and I apologized to that man because the Lord convicted me so heavily. You were a butt to that guy. I completely forgot all about that. I said, but I didn't. The enemy will bring things up like that and will chew in your brain and make you think, gosh, you stink. You're such an awful person. How could you ever come back from that? You know why? Because we have grace, and grace wins. Grace wins every single time. And it's hard to determine what is right, what is good in our lives. It's hard to determine what's of God, what's not of God. 1 John 4 tells us that even in churches here, it's wise for us to test every spirit or person that prophesies to you. Anybody that comes up to you and wants to pray over you, or wants to prophesy a word to you, or just wants to be a part of your life, test them in the spirit, right? Pray, get into the spirit, figure out, is this really of God? There's a lot of folks out there. I tell people this all the time. And I'm not telling you what to do, but I am telling you what to do, because this is what I don't do. Don't put on Facebook, ChatSnap, Instagram, whatever, Twitter, whatever it's called now. Don't put on there, please pray for me. Don't do that. Because I'm telling you, you think I'm nuts. Witches, warlocks, all those demonic individuals, they'll pray over you. They will curse you because you're struggling and you're an easy target at that point. Don't throw your business out there. Find your four crazy faith friends. Those are the ones that are praying over you. That's my soapbox, sorry. Confusion divides, confusion separates, and destroys God's truth from being in your life, being in your heart, being in your mind. Even more so that we can create our own confusion if we try to rely on our own understanding. Anybody tried that? I have. Fails miserably every single time. Because I'm dumb. I am not. God has to be in the center of everything that I do, because if not, I'm going to make some bad decisions. I'm going to make some bad purchases. Right? I straight up, Amazon and I have a toxic relationship. I have to ask the better half, can I order this? No. Okay, thank you. She doesn't take naps anymore, because that's when I go out and buy the big stuff. So, regardless of that, what I want to tell you today is trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. And in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make you straight your paths. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Yeah, I know. You're telling me, I do trust him, Pastor. But do you really trust him? Any believer who claims to be spirit-filled and a true believer and a follower of Christ should not have a spirit of fear at all. Should not have a spirit of doubt or anxiety or confusion that completely dominates every aspect of your life. You can't function in the spirit if you're allowing these things to drag you down. You just can't. It's one thing to say that we trust in the Lord. I trust Jesus with all my heart. But are you actually living that out? Are you actually trusting him? When you're driving down the road and he tells you, pull off. What? Pull off. Why? There's nobody here. Yet you continue on and somebody comes screaming around that blind curve and misses you by that close, only because you were lucky and dumb luck swerved out of the way. Why is he telling us? The Spirit's, you're not trusting in the Lord. You're not listening. Don't go to that store. Why? Don't do it. Okay. Keep on driving down the road, go to the next one. It's the simple things like that. I know it sounds goofy. You may think I'm nuts. Yeah. But God, he will reveal all these things to you if you're walking straight in those paths, in his path. Is your life filled with emergency to emergency, problem to problem, crisis to crisis? We've been there. I'm telling you. It's awesome. Not. Or are you truly casting everything that you have all to the one who can bring you peace? And your life actually reflects that. I want you to make no mistake that there is a real enemy out there. And he is exactly like this. In 1 Peter 5:8, be sober-minded and be watchful. There's a warning right there. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. We have an enemy out there who's very, very real. And no, he's not some dude that's all in red with horns and a pitchfork. That's not who he is. 1 Peter 5:8 describes the enemy, our adversary, as a prowling lion. Anybody ever here watch Discovery Channel? Love Discovery Channel. And there's Sahara things where they've got the, the lion's sneaking up on the antelope, right? I love that. I love those things. I absolutely love that, right? What does that look like? You ever watch that? Like you see this like herd just kind of grazing around, and you see this lion who's like off in the brush, just like crouched down, right? He is like camouflaged. He matches the brush. Like he's ready to eat. Or she, it's ready to eat, right? And then you see, I mean, man, if you watch Tillian, it's usually pretty terrible. But there's three types of animals or three types of reactions that we see, right? We see the completely clueless one, the antelope, who's just like, what? Okay, guys. And he's mauled, he's gone. Done for. Then we see the one who's like, he's munching away, and all of a sudden he's like, huh? Oh, gotta go, right? He's that last second guy. He gets maimed, maybe fatal, maybe not, but he walks away with a limp after that, right? Okay? Or there's the one who's on guard all the time, who takes a bite, he looks up, head on a swivel, right? What happens? He sees him, gone. He skates away, he's like, ha ha, sucker, right? He's not worried about it because he can get away. Where do you operate on a daily in your life when it comes to the enemy after you? Are you last second Larry, who barely limps away from the adversary in his attacks? Are you clueless Cletus, who just doesn't get it and you're going to get mauled every single day? Or are you on guard Oscar, the guy who can see it, head on a swivel every day, all day, and you see the attacks coming for you? Which one are you? You see, our adversary can come to us in many forms. I told you, not the dude with horns and dressed in red with a pitchfork. That's not him. My father was in the ICU many years ago. He had one of the first laparoscopic gallbladder surgeries, and they didn't clamp his biliary duct all the way when they were doing it. So he ended up with a nasty case of peritonitis that almost killed him. So he spent about 30 days in the ICU. I used to go visit him after I got out of nursing school, and they let me come in about 9 o'clock so I could spend some time with Dad, right? And after he got out of the hospital, it was very interesting. He said, son, I know the devil's real. Oh, okay, Pop, whatever, man, that's cool. He's like, no, I'm telling you, he's real. I was like, oh, please do tell. He said he came and visited me. What you talking about, Willis? He said, a guy came in my room, very unassuming guy, dressed in a polo, khakis, very nice looking guy, came, sat down the edge of my bed, looked at me and said, I've got you. I'm coming after your family. Whoa. He knew, and he never saw the guy again. Asked the nurses, they didn't see any guy. Some guy showed up, unassuming, warning him that he was coming after the family. He takes many forms.